Saltwater History, episode 206, Tuesday night, coming off of a bye week. Richard, what's going on?
So many things, Charlie, so many things. We have a plethora of subject matters on which to speak and address, and we're going to get it all done here in our magical 1 hour episode or thereabouts. We're not strict on time limits.
Más o menos. It's
Más o menos, sí.
amazing how much can add up when you take a week off.
Yeah, that's right. It's like skipping a hockey practice. You get all kind of discombobulated when you hit the ice again. You got to get your feet under you again.
And we've got I'll say a solid Meanwhile in Oak Park. It's not one of the greats, but solid.
Now, of course, members of the audience it's about 50-50 whenever Charlie says we got a pretty good Oak Park or we have a solid Oak Park, or even when he says there's a great Oak Park, sometimes those might not land as some of the surprise ones we've had where we're like, but it
That's
really
true.
hits.
I'm not great at predicting the reaction once we take a deeper dive into Meanwhile in Oak Park.
Well, and I have to admit that's a little bit on us. It's not as though Oak Park doesn't give us really good material all the time. It's our performance in relation to it.
Well, often when I'm skimming through ahead of time, I might skim over quotes that are important details that later, when we go through the whole story, that actually makes the story a lot more interesting or less interesting. So I'm doing a
Sure.
bad job on
Yeah.
the Meanwhile in Oak Park scouting report, I guess.
Okay. Well, that's on you.
Yeah. Pope Leo and Trump, your two guys, they're fighting. It's your two best friends are fighting. Whose side
It's
are you
all it's
picking?
all kayfabe, it's all the WWE wrestling. What just surprises me about this is the lack of individuals, the dearth of individuals who just can't hold two thoughts together at the same time in or on social media and beyond, just in regular parlance and conversation. Leo can still be a modernist heretical anti-pope and be right on the depravity, the injustice of this clearly unjust and Zio motivated campaign against Iran and war against Iran. Now, it just so happens that when he does speak of it, he speaks in these generalities about, and by the way, anti Catholic, meaning against the doctrine of the church regarding the just application of violence. He'll just speak in general terms about how it's always unwarranted, or to use Francis and Bergoglian language, it's inadmissible, as Francis described and even put into the catechism his teaching on the death penalty, which is contrary to the previous nearly 2,000-year teaching of the church on the death penalty. Leo does the same thing with war. So he's right to criticize those who are the warmongers conducting these campaigns, these murderous campaigns against an innocent people and nation in Iran, or for example, in Lebanon or Gaza, where if I nothing's going to shake the boomers into coherence and actually being awakened because they're outraged by this most recent image of the IDF soldier smashing the head of the corpus, a large corpus that was taken off the actual cross. And so there's some of them that are just waking up to this notion that the Israelis are anti-Christian and virulently against authentic Christianity, of course, and that's in Catholicism and its close, unfortunate cousin, and that's Orthodoxy. So there's the image that Charlie's pointing out. But there was a great tweet in relation that I saw today, and I wish I could give credit where it's due to the individual who posted it. Like, well, if the boomer generation is finally waking up to this, they should also know that over the course of the entire history of Israel, they have targeted and just in the most recent campaigns, they've destroyed, for example, and bombed every Christian church, especially the apostolic churches, St. Porphyrius, Holy Family in Gaza. They go right after, and in Lebanon, you have these videos of the IDF soldiers mocking our Lord, mocking our Eucharistic sacrifice, the true Paschal mystery. And when they're going to churches and spraying graffiti and using, there's reports that a band of IDF soldiers used a Catholic church in a Maronite Catholic church in the South as a latrine and toilet. So I just don't. So what I'm getting at is Leo. I guess I shouldn't be surprised that people can't hold these two things in their minds when they're also excusing the sort of abject crimes of of Israeli history in their mind, and in their minds the boomer class or generation especially, and all those defending and apologists for Israel, they just still see Israel as this only democracy in the Middle East, and oh, it's just plucky Jewish Israel, and my accountant's Jewish and he's pretty smart, so all those guys are pretty good too because my accountant got me this tax break. It's like, all right, come on. And then so what I but at the same time, when I described this as kayfabe, the Catholic Esquire did a great video. It's about 10 minutes long. I'll put a link for it in the show notes. And he said, look, this WWE wrestling match where people can't just make basic distinctions and just start spouting out false dichotomies. It's like Trump can be a moronic, hedonistic megalomaniac who's bent on genocide and is owned by Netanyahu and the Zionists. True. And just because Leo disagrees with him vehemently in this way, again, albeit in drastic, as much as generalities can be drastic, I suppose, or just broad brush generalities, let's say, using old tired canards and globalist talking points, he can still be an antipope. They can both be bad. And when, for example, it's the reverse when we're speaking about national sovereignty and the question of mass migration. And Trump's right on that issue, although he doesn't do very much efficacious about it. And Leo's wrong on that issue and in defiance of Catholic teaching. And so that doesn't mean that all of a sudden Trump is 100% or even in some preponderant way redeemed and Leo is now damned. This is not a kind of fulcrum of justification between the two when there's adversarial relationships on certain subject matters. They're both bad. We can have a heretical anti-pope in Rome who, remember, we were just talking about 2 weeks ago, we have actual visual evidence of him worshiping the Pachamama, correct? And but then he can be right to a degree on the Iran war and the persecution of Christians and Muslims in Gaza. But he can also still at the same time be a globalist and a modernist and wrong. Same thing with Trump. So I just don't get where people lost that capacity. I don't think it's always been absent in the majority of people with whom you interact on a daily basis, but it's certainly in the case for me. What do you find about this, Charlie?
Well, I'm curious, why do you think it's that way? Why do you
Hmm.
think we've seen WWE play out before with other historical events?
Hmm.
Is it the
Hmm.
same reasoning as that? What do you give the most credit to on the Family Feud board? Education, the constant news cycle we're in now, social media. What are the top answers for that? Why
Hmm.
do people only see in twos? Why is it only divisible by two?
Yeah, the binary.
Right. Yeah, why
Uh,
is it only ones and zeros?
yeah, why is it always only ones and zeros? I do, in large part, I would attribute that to public education. And I, especially in the humanities, wherein even in the best literature that they might access and read, there's there tends to be portrayed a good side and a bad side, the cowboy with a white hat and the cowboy with a black hat. And as a result, that framework or hermeneutic, dualistic hermeneutic is always at play in the mind. I suspect too, it's often easier. It's just simpler. It's a lazy thought experiment to, in an unqualified way, say this guy's better than that guy. So I'm just going to dismiss and exonerate the person who is good from the visible foibles that they might have, and then demonize every action in a univocal way of the bad guy once he's identified. It's also, if I could go from the point of having taught history for so long, the narratives that are often the official narratives written by the winners love to have this means by which you say, well, the good guys shifted 40 destroyers over to Great Britain in the middle of a war while claiming neutrality on September 2nd, 1940. Well, there must have been a reason that they did that. They were just being heroic and trying to protect democracy. And they didn't really want to have to sacrifice in the war. Well, that seems both admirable and prudent. Yeah. And then of course, you have the events that are catalysts for reversing those supposedly sagacious and wise, prudent, practical decisions. And then the conditions change. So again, FDR is just the good guy. So, well, all of that must have been justified. And it's weird how they can do kind of proof texting with history and say, well, thank God that FDR transferred those destroyers in late 1940, because if he didn't, well, Britain would have really been lost, and then we would have had to fight harder in the war and give up more resources and men. You see how that can work?
Yeah.
Rather than saying, well, wait a second. A critical thinker would say, like David Irving, for example, would say, well, why was there a security guarantee given to Poland of all places? Right? So those questions never pop in my head because those questions are uncomfortable if you have, and status quo bias is pretty powerful in the historical mind of the individual. What are your thoughts there? Do you find those explanations satisfactory, or
Yeah, I like
have I
that.
left you wanting?
I actually forgot about the Leo Trump spat. I don't know if you would call it that over immigration
Hmm.
for all this. That now you have four squares. You have people that think Trump's right about
Yes,
both. You have people that think Leo's right about both, and then you've got the actually three, and then you've got one and one, right?
sure.
And I guess you could have neither are right about
Any of it.
right, but we're you just it. I think there's been, at least in our lifetime, there's been an effort to make as many of those combinations as possible across all the issues we have.
Sure.
So I I didn't even remember the Leo Trump immigration thing through all of this. That
Mhm.
because you'll see people posting now, I side with Leo, or they'll say I side with Trump.
Yes, it's as though you're,
What does that
you're
mean?
yeah. It's again, you're picking a favorite boxer, and every time he enters the ring,
Yeah,
no
Leo's
matter what
not
he
running
does or what
against
the
Trump.
venue or who else he's fighting, you're always going to go Team Leo or Team Trump. It's
Yep,
just it's fanboyish, it's stupid and adolescent, puerile, but people love that stuff. Do you think sports plays a role too? That everything is
absolutely.
sportified?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I it does this is where having principles helps. People are, and I know I sound like Albert J. Nock and I'm just deriding the masses, but it's even more virulent, this kayfabe and all this stuff, a WWE wrestling match applied to every question, social, political, economic, historical, you name it. But it does help to, and you do feel a freedom when you stop having blind allegiance to people or institutions and lend a critical eye. I think there's a fear in that because people, just like a fandom, it's wrapped up in your identity, right? But maybe it's a great grace of God that's been afforded to me, and I know it's to a certain extent you, wherein institutions and practices and customs that I used to have, for which I used to have a great reverence, have now gone into the dumpster fire of my value rankings, or priorities, or even how I would identify to the point where I'm embarrassed that I once called myself a kind of mainline libertarian, or I'm embarrassed, especially that I voted for I voted for George W. Bush. Vote George W. Bush. I used to, and I didn't see the genius of Ron Paul. How embarrassing. Um, I was a White Sox fan for
I knew that was good.
I was a White Sox fan for 42 years of my life, 43 years, and 43 years. I was raised on Southside Chicago baseball. I spent, I mean, I think when I was little, I averaged and this is so I'm so old that when I was little, I would go to Old Comiskey. I probably saw 25 to 30 games a year. I was there all the time. So it really does become part of your identity. But then you start to think of, and I suspect that it's not even a suspicion, it's just reality, it's experienced that my biggest hang up about the White Sox is my anarcho-capitalism doesn't allow me to support a team that is so usurpative and parasitical toward the state and thus victimize taxpayers who have been defrauded and from whom major funds have been stolen to be expropriated to uh, a lying crook of a baseball owner who used threats of exit from Illinois and Chicago to get sweetheart deals on the stadium and other contracts and the like. So, and then he has the audacity to hat in hand try to ask for public funds for another new stadium. Are you kidding? So it's good to be principled. In other words, I don't know how people can feel comfortable or even lay their head on the pillow at night and not be racked with the guilt of inconsistency.
Could we stay on sports for a second?
Mm.
I had a coworker. He was from Ireland,
Hmm.
and he was very much not a fan of American football,
Okay.
which I've become sympathetic towards.
Yes.
We would say the games are too long. They
There's
too many.
not, when you break down, there's not a lot of action, actual action.
That was his main complaint.
Hmm.
And I was thinking about it because we think the same thing. We still go along with it, but
Yeah.
it is too long. But in America, we love one, we love our commercials. We love the business behind that. But
Right.
two, we love the replay center and these debates
You're
over
right.
these always moving rules and
Yes.
laws and how
Uh-huh.
one plays into the next. And was this a catch or was this not? Is this something this is a rule that they put in last year about roughing the passer? This has been a point of
Right.
emphasis across the league. In America, we love that stuff. And we love arguing with our friends while the game's on about, no, he didn't have forcible contact on it. The defensive lineman didn't have he
He
didn't
didn't make a
carry
football move.
he didn't they love that one. He didn't carry his weight down with the quarterback. He didn't land on the quarterback.
Right.
We absolutely eat that up in the States.
Now I'll question you on that. Why is that?
Well, I think they go hand in hand. I think we love one, we love our state, we love our rules, we love our laws, and we love the
Oh.
constant debate and tribalism that goes along with that.
When you say we, you meant the royal we, not
The French, nah, I'm just kidding. Not, I'm talking about Americans,
yeah.
which we are.
Okay. Can I offer a theory on that?
Yeah.
What when you're in a family type situation on a holiday or in a group of even extended friends, acquaintances, social, fairly larger group, anywhere from 4 to 8, 10, 12 people. You might even be engaged in conversation with a group of them. What are the things you can't talk about and debate?
Politics,
Religion, politics.
religion.
In other words, philosophy, the most consequential stuff is all put on the umbrella of we're not talking politics today. Oh no, right? We're not talking politics. And then someone comes in and polices it and says, shuts it down. Don't talk about it. So our natural inclination is to talk about things of consequence. But when you can't do that any longer and it's deemed as impolite, our natural inclination to debate and argue and assess the value systems and just the overall worldview of other people shifts into this let's speak inconsequential and important and severe and serious tone about the inconsequential. So therefore, I'm not going to make anyone too angry about the inconsequential, and then therefore I can extricate myself and still have my friendly acquaintanceships or still be deemed as a nice guy or someone who can, debate things because I never said anything passionate about something that's substantive. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
And by the
because it
way,
doesn't matter.
I'm passionate.
The sports don't matter.
Correct. So no one. So and really, in point of fact, if I went in and I just started lambasting Leo at a Holy Name Men's Society meeting, or at a Knights of Columbus meeting, or just in a group of parishioners at St. Mary's, just railing on him, I'm gonna. I'm always going to be remembered by those people as the guy that really hates Pope Leo. Yeah. But if I go in, and that might come with both lauds and derision, that might be the reaction, everything on the scale. But I'll be remembered as that, correct? Because I said something substantive and made an evaluation
In
and a
a place
powerful one
that you
on
were in a
something that's
setting you
important.
weren't supposed to.
Or yeah, or in a setting I wasn't supposed to or wasn't anticipated. But if I just start talking about how Caleb Williams has the potential to be a 4,000 yard quarterback, one, no one's going to have too much of a passion about that. And even if they do, they're certainly not going to remember that, oh, Gary Richard's the guy who said Caleb Williams is going to throw for over 4,000 yards this year. Because everybody makes those claims. And no one's held accountable at the end. Like, no one remembers that at the end of the season, oh, he only passed for 3,900. That idiot Richard, right? So that's where, as we are less united ever by what might be called common sense mores and values, especially in a place like Chicago, where I don't know if there is that font from which we can draw civic pride. We're left with sports to be and sports figures to be our vicarious representatives. It always puzzled me too is why everyone has this great allegiance to the players on their team, despite the fact that those people have no connection whatsoever other than playing for that franchise in that city to that town culture and people. I That's why, and I understand. Therefore, there's a great allegiance for when, for example, like I think Stan Musial grew up in St. Louis, and then he becomes the greatest St. Louis Cardinal in history. Well, okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Or if Babe Ruth played for the non-existent Baltimore Orioles, that would be huge, right? But I mean, a case in point, and I understand that, especially for the stars of a certain city, Walter Payton became synonymous with Chicago, even though he's from rural Mississippi. He went to Jackson State, a historically black college. Yeah. So they do ingratiate themselves, depending on how charismatic the sports figure is, and they become or take on some of the cultural identity of the city.
Right.
Oh, Peyton's, what do Chicago Bears fans always talk about Walter Payton about? How hard he worked, how he'd take, and this they identify vicariously through him. Like I worked at the steel mill like that. I worked at US Steel like that. I sweat like him. And what did Walter Payton do just like me? He put a backpack full of rocks on his back and went up the hills of Palatine, up and down, up and down. It's the same kind of thing.
Yeah. I'm glad you could expand on that take. That was,
Me too.
and then the other thing, you might disagree with this, and we don't have to talk sports the entire time. Jerry Reinsdorf, absolutely corrupt,
Right.
but I'm starting to become a little sympathetic about him being so cheap with the player contracts with the Dodgers, if that makes sense.
Oh, you mean that
So
the
I would
Dodgers
include,
are so
yeah. So the Dodgers just paid Kyle Tucker $60 million a year, who might
okay.
be their fifth best player.
Yes,
The White Sox have never paid anybody over $100 million
that's
contract.
right. Andrew Benintendi at $72 million is the largest contract ever handed out by the White Sox.
And I'm almost starting to think that Jerry Reinsdorf gets the cheap label because they don't people don't want to dig deep enough to give him the corrupt label. Like how
Okay.
how because this happens in greater Chicago where when I talk to non-Chicagoans, they always bring up the violence in Chicago,
Uh-huh.
but they never bring up the corruption in Chicago.
Yes. That's right. That's right.
And I've been affected a lot more by personally, and part of this is setting, but I've been affected a whole lot more by the corruption in my lived experience. I've been affected way more by the corruption of the city of Chicago
Hmm.
versus the violence of the city of Chicago.
Sure. Yeah.
Because, and I see the same with Jerry Reinsdorf, that
Yeah.
they say that he's so cheap, but 100, if we paid whoever's up next $100 million, it's not really going to move the needle. We're still not going to compete with the Dodgers who are willing to spend $60
Well,
million a year on their fifth best player.
yeah, but here we go. Two things can be true at the same time. He can be cheap and corrupt.
Well, I know, but I'm saying like Chicago can be violent and corrupt as well. But
Oh, yes.
why is one always brought up versus the other? Because
Again, okay,
non-Chicagoans,
so yeah, you're making
non-Chicagoan, this is the point. Non-Chicagoans are having me being like, "Oh, the violence in the city is a little overblown, even though it's obviously still terrible."
right.
But
Uh,
there's no light that's being shined on the corruption of the state. People don't even know about.
yeah, because I think the simple answer there is it's more complicated to make that argument. Like, for example, if you say, "Oh, the city's violent," well, people tend to equate living in urban centers in the United States with more crime, rightfully so, than in suburban areas or wealthy or rural areas. Yeah. So because people have that natural penchant, now you could say, for example, when you talk about corruption, they might say, well, what type of corruption? Whereas violence is pretty evident, it's self-evident. Right? If someone, if you were to say, it's very much like Henry Hazlitt, his economics in one lesson. Economics is the science of the seen and the unseen. Yeah. So it's obvious that there's violence, correct? You could see it. You could see it in news reports about it. And it's sensational because there's a victim and there's a criminal. And there's supposed to be a heroic magistrate, judge that's going to put them in prison, or the policeman that stepped in, or the firefighter and first responder who heroically saved the day. That's basically nightly news. Okay. But corruption is it's less tangible. It's less sensual, right? Like, oh, okay, well, the lady out in Dixon, Illinois, who was basically writing checks to herself from the city treasury and didn't get caught until she went on vacation and someone noticed that these checks were going to a private account or whatever. Um, that's not as sensational. I would say this too, that especially in a climate city and state like Illinois and Chicago, people don't like so when there's violence, you can separate yourself from that. I didn't do any of that. I'm not culpable. I'm not even in terms of my own activity by omission responsible, even in a remote way to that for that. That was the volition and free will of somebody perpetrating a crime against a victim, right? Whereas in a supposed democracy where we're all supposed to be civilly engaged, well, then I am culpable for what? Not noticing that if I'm a citizen of Dixon, I either have to feel like I'm a moron because I just let this happen, or two, I become the victim, or both. I've been victimized by something. They stole from me, you see? So there's no feel good. There's no catharsis there. As, for example, when Aristotle said that and I can't remember if this is in Nicomachean Ethics or in his treatise on politics, but in any case, he said one of the allures of Greek theater, especially tragedy, was that when the crowd would see a murder, what the Greeks didn't call this, but what the psychological or our innate and natural response is not sympathy actually. it's relief that we're not the murdered.
Mm.
And then there's a he understood that there was some type of chemical slash anatomic phenomenon going on that of course he couldn't see, but the human mind was relieved by seeing something that was horrific and recognizing that, wait, it's not happening to me. There's a great relief in that.
I like that a lot. I needed to hear that. It's been on my heart for a while. What else we got?
Charlie, in a way, this is your show. I'm just a guy watching a Greek comedy, not a tragedy.
I don't know about that. Well, we can get to the people's favorite segment. Our
Right?
roads in America are crumbling. You sent me that. Did you
Yeah.
want to talk at all about Pete Hegseth,
What did I send about Peak the Hegseth? Just
the
other than
Lego
my
video?
oh yeah,
That was pretty funny.
you got these Lego videos. Did you see the one at Cash Patel where they have the Lego guy and he's bugged out and he's always drunk,
Yeah.
bugged out eyes? These Iranians, I mean, they are crushing it. They talk about a advanced, great nation and people who know how to fight and defend their civilization and people in every way, from the great Satan and the little Satan. And it just must be so galling to Trump and Hegseth that all these people are so materialistic and so desirous of mammon and so desirous of power, and the libido dominandi is dominating them. And then they have Iranians who they see as little more than livestock and animals and obstructions in their grandiose plans, just hammering away at their reputations and hammering away at their thought processes and decisions and policies. It's just, it must be just so galling for the guy who is the king of Twitter and ascended to the presidency of the United States on those on that medium, or the power of that medium, to just get smoked and vanquished every day by Lego movies coming out of and from Iran and Iranians. That's just great. Oh, I have one last question for you.
Yeah.
So you know my expatriate desires,
Yeah.
expatriating desires. And there was a there was a tweet. I guess there's an account. A lot of the Iranian accounts get canceled by the Jews running Twitter, and so they have to change their name. So one changed his name from like Iran Watch to Levant Watch, and they put up a poll, or would you visit Iran if paid to go? And I wrote, hell, I'll definitely visit Iran, and I'll pay. And I got all these likes, from all these across the political spectrum and the like. So it's nice to see again. I wish none of this terrible war ever transpired against the Iranian people. Unjust, thoroughly unjust, and imperial, and savage, and larcenous. All of the terrible things. Really, the seven deadly sins are, and the demons who wish to see us engage in them are all active in this war. But it is a very thin silver lining, but none one that's valuable nonetheless, to see all these people of goodwill, all these people with right consciences, sometimes on definitely different sides of the spectrum of politics, even economics, what have you, religion, but to recognize the absence and the that which is devoid of the good, the evil, and then respond to that, and then find joy in each other's company. That's comforting.
Was there a question?
What's that?
You said I have one last question for you.
Oh, no, I think I said the one last question before,
Nah.
didn't I? Oh yeah, the one last question was forgive me, was would you go to Iran?
Today?
Well, I mean when the hostilities are eventually over.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait. I'd love to. And I
I thought you meant right now.
no, no, no. It doesn't make sense to right now, but I would love to go. I was envious. Someone said, who was in my feed, said, I visited Iran a year ago, and I just said, darn it, I really wish I could have gone. I really wish I'd taken that opportunity to go before the hostilities, before the war. But did you see how ingenious and how dedicated the Iranians are, especially their civil engineers? The U.S. and Israel knocked out all those bridges and buildings and all these war crimes. Do you know all the bridges that were knocked out? They already have them up again.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, all train bridges, yeah, locomotive bridges, large car bridges. I mean, it's just the industriousness and dedication of these people to their civilization and their neighbors is just it's inspiring. God bless Iran. And so I've been getting a lot of hits on the website about my Kish article in the petrodollar in Iran and Saudi Arabia piece that was published in the Mises Institute. So yeah, got to engage a little bit with that.
What's the easiest way to get to Iran? Do they,
Plane,
I assume they don't just let you on, let you go
let
right
you
now.
in?
Right now?
Well, I mean,
Do they let you leave to go direct to Iran is my,
I would think not. I think you
that's
might
what
be
I'm asking.
flagged.
Where do you have to
But
go to
what
first?
are they gonna do once you're in um
Where do you go to first?
I guess I would go to Istanbul would be the closest like is kind of safe landing spot. I mean, usually you would fly into UAE and then or fly into Bahrain or Qatar from Europe or some I would have to take a look. I did before the war look at flights to Tehran and it was pretty reasonable actually. It was like I think it was 1,200 bucks round trip. Not bad.
That's pretty
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. I mean, there were about 15 stops each way.
Oh,
No, I'm just kidding. I think there was one stop from my recollection. In fact, I want to say that one of the options was Lufthansa, so you could fly nonstop from Chicago to Berlin and then Berlin to Tehran, which was pretty cool. That would have been nice. But I've been to Berlin already. That's old hat.
all right. Do you want to talk about a town that doesn't have any people considering going to Iran
Well,
anytime soon?
channeling my inner Mike McCreary from the Jimmy Dore show. Not really. Not really. But okay, let's go ahead.
Here it is.
Meanwhile in Oak Park.
Should we go to your gay suburb now?
The People segment, meanwhile, in Oak Park, brought to you by Tridentine Brewing. Hey, we've got another thing that you sent me, Kennedy Hall.
Yes.
I forgot how much I like listening to his voice.
Oh man. I know. And I say this with an absolutely untrammeled path of pure heterosexuality. It's like musky, masculine dude admiration voice. That's how I describe it.
First story, abandoned and in disrepair, city brings suit versus owner of Our Lady Help of Christians.
Hmm.
Suit aims to compel current owner to fix or demolish church. This is the west wall of Our Lady Help of Christians Catholic Church, how it looks right now.
Hmm.
Information about the ownership of the former Our Lady Help of Christians Catholic Church in Austin is sparse, but two things are known for certain. The city of Chicago has brought suit against the current owner of the boarded up church at 832 North LeClaire Avenue and, quote, seeks to abate dangerous and unsafe conditions at the property in question. Second, the graffiti and broken windows that pock the church's exterior. What's this? Be
Belie.
belie? What is
Hmm.
that?
Exposes or
Exterior
expose.
belie the building's profound internal and structural problems, including cracked rafters, exposed wiring, and masonry that has stress fractures. The city filed its suit April 17th, 2025, in Cook County Circuit Court against St. Mark International Christian Church, along with the California based mortgage holder and the apparent contract buyer. The clause for the case is to be continued for jurisdiction on June 8th at the Daly Center. The Chicago Department of Buildings, the DOB, remains committed to ensuring the safety of our communities through our enforcement action, said Nefsa Hyatt Brown, Director of Public Affairs.
What? Oh my God.
What's the,
What is Nefsa Hyatt?
is that the first or
I think
last name?
I think the first name is Nefsa, a apostrophe Hayat. Nefsa Hayat.
Director
That's
of
my
Public.
best
I
guess.
wonder if they're from Africa and they've got, I don't know,
Hmm.
Director of Public Affairs. Dobb has conducted various inspections at the St. Mark International Christian Church, resulting in enforcement actions escalating to the Department of Law in 2021 and 2026. Quote, Dobb inspectors have documented various violations posing a hazard to the surrounding community and have ordered the building vacated and secured. Upon reinspection, our team documented that the building was open, leading to the most recent referral to the Department of Law. The property is currently in active litigation. Major internal structural damage. According to the Archdiocese of Chicago Real Estate Department, Our Lady Help of Christians Church was sold in March 2006 to St. Mark International Christian Church, which has locations at 400 North 5th Avenue in Maywood and Kennesaw, Georgia. Multiple calls to both locations were not returned. There was also no response to an email to local church pastor Andre Thurman, who is named in the lawsuit. No information was available for mortgage holder Ministry Partners Investment Company, LLC in Bree, California. Jerry Kurzak, who the lawsuit terms the trustee and contract buyer, could not be located. So this is the door to the rectory now.
Wow.
Pretty sad.
Very.
Additionally, there was no response to multiple requests for information and comment from the 37th Ward Ald Emma Mitz, but the lawsuit contends there have been dangerous and unsafe conditions at the vacant and open premises since at least September 24. The long list includes a heating system that is missing ductwork, stripped, inoperable, and has been
Been
vandalized.
Yeah.
Missing and warped flooring, missing roof shingles, broken or missing plaster and damaged studding, masonry that has step or stress fractures and washed out mortar joints, broken or missing glazing with cracked panes, broken, missing, or inoperable sashes, a plumbing system that is missing fixtures, stripped and inoperable with approximately 6 inches, staircase, damaged decking, cracked rafters, electrical system with exposed wiring, and damaged joints. Many of the issues identified in the suit are possibly due to smoke, fire, or water damage. According to the first of 7 counts indicated in the suit, the city of Chicago requests the court issue an order to either require the defendants to demolish, repair, enclose, or clean up the property under proper city permits, authorize the city to do the same with costs paid by the defendants as a judgment against them, or appoint a receiver to correct the conditions with full powers of receivership. The city also asks the court to permit foreclosure of any city liens against the property. The second count requests the court assess civil penalties against the defendants in the maximum amount per day from the date of service of summons in the case, quote, until the dangerous and unsafe or uncompleted and abandoned condition is abated. Just has broken windows, this old Catholic church. Just
Yep.
Church's long history. According to information gleaned from Archdiocesan archives, Our Lady Help of Christians was founded as a mission of St. Catherine of Siena Church in Oak Park in the 1890s. In summer 1901, Reverend Lewis A. Campbell, St. Catherine of Siena pastor, authorized construction of a church building at Iowa Street and Leamington Avenue, with then Archbishop Patrick A. Feehan reorganizing the mission as a parish that fall. The first resident pastor was Reverend Joseph P. O'Reilly.
Yeah, it speaks to just how beautiful and bordering on luxurious life was in Austin. Austin was the place to be, especially if you're well off at the turn of the century all the way through the 1950s. So it's sad to see.
St. Catherine St. Lucie Church at Austin and Washington and Oak Park was closed a year ago and is currently for sale by the Archdiocese. At first, O'Reilly named the parish Our Lady of Mercy, but shortly changed the name to Our Lady Help of Christians. That church building was blessed by Auxiliary Bishop Peter J. Muldoon in late 1901. A rectory was constructed in 1902 with a school that opened in 1907.
That's when you had thriving Catholic institutions and culture.
The foundation of the current church building was laid in August 1926. Cardinal George Mundelein dedicated that building just over a year later in November 1927. In 1936, the school was expanded with ground broken for a new school in summer 1960, which included classrooms, a gymnasium, and a library. The Archdiocese currently owns the school building at 819 and 831, 847 North Leamington Avenue, but is attempting to sell it through Chicago-based Baum Realty Group for an asking price of 1.25 million. According to information from the Baum Realty website, the school has, quote, a two-story classroom configuration alongside full-sized high-ceiling gymnasium, along with a 4,500 square foot gated parking lot and a 27,500 square foot adjacent vacant parcel.
Hmm.
But again, few details about that sale were forthcoming from Baum Realty. Quote, I'm not able to provide any public comment regarding the property at this time, said Baum Realty's Ari Topper.
Means absolutely no one is interested. Which is too sad too, because there are some gentrification and rehabilitation efforts going on in Austin. I mean, the location is fantastic, and it has really all these different things going for them. The problem is that there's too many criminal elements within Austin, and it's one of the most violent neighborhoods in the city.
Second story, this is a little bit of old news, but Israel boycotts will be topic for Township's annual town meeting.
Uh-oh.
A resident petition put the matter on the annual agenda, with residents voting Tuesday night to put it on the November ballot.
Oh, there's supporters of Israel.
I'm going to skip through this because there's been some stories since then about this keeps getting pushed along.
Okay.
Oak Park residents will take part in an obscure direct democracy process this week with the question about boycotting, sanctioning, and divesting in Israel on the line. Oak Park Township is hosting its annual town meeting at the Oak Park Dole Library's second floor at 6:30, April 14th, which was last week. The township's annual meeting provides an opportunity for residents to gather signatures to put an item on the agenda that Oak Parkers at the meeting will then vote on to decide whether or not the matter will go before Oak Park voters as an advisory referendum on the ballot in November's general election. The question on this year's meeting agenda is, quote, do you support the right of individuals and organizations, including state contractors, to boycott, divest, and sanction Israel? The same question is on the agenda for several other townships around the state. The petitions come as violence in the Middle East escalates and the Illinois legislature considers repealing a 2015 law banning state pension funds from being invested in companies that divest from or boycott Israel. The boycott question is the only resident petition on this year's agenda, and it's the first petition to make it on Oak Park Township's annual meeting agenda since 2024.
Hmm.
The deadline to submit petitions to the township was March 1st. Petitions need only 15 signatures from registered Oak Park voters to get on the township's annual meeting agenda.
That's how engaged the Oak
That's
Parkers are.
low. That's low. I might get 15 boys to start up some real fun referendum
Yeah,
ideas.
yeah, there you go.
The boycott petition received 26 Oak Park signatures that were verified by Cook County officials. According to Oak Park Township Clerk Lou Ann Johannesson, any registered Oak Park voter can attend the annual meeting, speak about the issue, and vote on whether or not to put the question on November's ballot. Each township in the state is hosting an annual meeting Tuesday night. The rest is a little boring.
The rest? Uh,
There are currently 28 companies listed as boycotting Israel by the Illinois Investment Policy Board, including Adidas and Air Canada.
all right.
In
All
2022,
right.
Chicago-based investment research giant Morningstar came very close to being put on the investment backlist over one of its subsidiaries, Human Rights Radar investment research product was found to have an anti-Israel bias in an outside law firm's investigation. One of the concessions the company made to avoid Illinois sanctions was ending its use of UN Human Rights Council information for the product, according to a report at the time by the
Oh,
Times of
wow.
Israel.
Isn't it
Wow.
amazing? Of course, Illinois is one of the 38 or 39 states where it's illegal if you want to have government contracts in the state to boycott, divest from Israel. It's amazing.
A referendum on Israeli boycotts could come before Oak Park's hyper-liberal electorate.
Now they're hyper liberal. When they want to transition all their kids, they're just being progressive. But now they're hyper liberal.
As support for Israel has become a dividing line among Democrats. Candidates' views on the war in Gaza and the U.S. support for Israel loomed large in primaries across the country last month.
True that.
This was true in Illinois' 7th District primary, where the American Israel Public Affairs Committee poured millions of dollars into the campaign of City of Chicago Treasurer Melissa Conyers-Ervin, who lost to longtime West Side State Rep LaShawn Ford. Progressive activist Keena Collins, who finished 4th overall, was the top vote getter in Oak Park after campaigning on a platform sharply critical of Israel. In response to a news article about Conyers-Ervin's loss posted on X, AIPAC called out Collins' campaign in the 13-way primary in particular. Quote, in this race, we were proud to help defeat Keena Collins, an anti-Israel candidate and would-be squad member who is endorsed by @TrackAIPAC, the group wrote in a post on X. It's now been 2.5 years since the war in Gaza began, while a fragile U.S. brokered ceasefire has been in place since last October.
Yes, and of course, everyone knows when you enter into a ceasefire with Israel, you cease and they continue to fire.
More than 71,000 Palestinians were killed and more than 171,000 were injured between October 7, 2023 and January 28th of this year, according to Gaza's Ministry of Health. Around 2,000 Israelis have been killed, and there have been 35,355 Israeli casualties since the start of the war, according to Tel Aviv University's Institute for National Security Studies. The national interest in U.S.-Israeli relations has only grown in the wake of the U.S. and Israel's new shared war with Iran, with recent ceasefire talks between the nations reportedly collapsing over the weekend.
There you go.
Last one. 4 years in, honors for all makes slow headway at OPRF.
Honors for all.
School board turns away requests for equity advisory panel. A majority of the school board at OPRF is not interested in creating a formal curriculum equity advisory group that was proposed by the Committee for Equity and Excellence in Education, which is the CEEE.
C.
Which I'm just going to refer to it from this point on as the C.
C.
But the school board does want to explore ways to increase parental and community involvement and feedback. School board president Audrey Williams Lee said the school board will look at ways to increase parental involvement. At its April 16th meeting, the school board discussed a formal proposal by C to create a curriculum equity advisory group to advise the school board and administration on how to advance equity in academics at the school. While school board members Jonathan Livingston
Excellence is so out the door and window.
Jonathan Livingston, Fred Arkin supported creating the group, and Kathleen Odell was sympathetic. The other 4 members of the school board expressed doubts and concerns about creating another committee to advise the board.
Committee number 495.
Quote, this is great. This is the quote of the week. Quote, I'm a no on the curriculum committee, said board vice president Tim Brandhorst. I do not support setting up a new committee.
Just in case you wanted to know and really dig deep into what I mean here.
Brandhorst noted that curriculum is a core responsibility of the school and said that he didn't feel that the school needed the help of an outside committee on the subject. Quote, we have an entire building filled with curriculum and instruction experts, Brandhorst said.
And we're obviously doing a very fine job in making sure and indoctrinating all of these poor minds so as to become loyal soldiers and bureaucrats for the state.
Board member Graham Brisbane said while he was fully on board with the motives behind the proposal, he wasn't sure that a new committee is the solution. Quote, I'm more interested in more tutoring and instructional coaching, Brisbane said. Odell said the need to continue to work on the disparities in academic performance at OPRF is apparent. Quote, I don't really have clarity as to what to do. That should just be the quote. I don't really have clarity as to what to do. But I think the points raised in the ask are important, Odell said. Brandhorst suggested the school board do a, quote, deep dive on all its advisory committees at this summer's board retreat and consider how best to increase parental involvement. Other board members seemed to think that was a good idea. John Duffy, a leader of
See?
C, said after the meeting that he was encouraged by the board's desire to keep the discussion going and the progress that has been made since C first formally proposed created curriculum equity advisory group last fall. Quote, we're very impressed with the progress that's been made.
Even though no one's clear as to what to do.
Duffy said, we're pleased that the concept is alive. That's a new one.
Wow.
I'm
Yeah.
pleased the concept is alive.
The concept's alive. We got to keep having the conversation about the concept because
I'm
it's
so
alive.
using that. I'm sneaking that into a business meeting. I'm just happy the concept's alive. This year's senior class.
What about my pay raise? Is the concept still alive there? Oh, it's dead, huh? Oh, can we resurrect the concept? See.
This year's senior class at OPRF is the first class that went through the honors for all freshman curriculum, in which approximately 85% of the freshman class has honors classes in English, science, and history in their freshman year. The goal of the honors for all curriculum is to get more Black and Hispanic students to take advanced placement and honors classes at OPRF, reduce the racial disparity in enrollment in such classes, and to reduce the disparity in academic achievement between racial groups at the school.
And have more people pay fees into the college board and have them fail the exam.
Results have been mixed. Since Honors for All was implemented in 2022, the percent of sophomores enrolling in honors and AP classes has increased for all demographic groups.
Well, because they have to. Isn't it mandatory?
Well, not sophomore year, for freshman year.
Oh, okay. I gotcha.
Some 35% of Black members of the OPRF class of 2026 took an honors class as a sophomore, compared to 28% of Black members of the class of 2025.
Okay.
Some 40% of the Black members of this year's sophomore class are taking an honors class. Black and Hispanic students are also taking more AP classes, and the increase in AP enrollment has been higher for Black and Hispanic students than for white students. But white students are still overrepresented in honors and AP classes at OPRF compared to their 52.3% of the overall enrollment at the school. Some 65% of the white members of the class of 2026 took an honors class as a sophomore, and 63% of this year's white sophomores at OPRF are taking an honors class.
Those damn white students, what with their strong work ethics and desire to succeed in life and not just be like everyone else in terms of performance and intelligence. Damn them.
The school's report also shows that Black enrollment in AP classes has significantly increased since the implementation of the Honors for All curriculum. 29% of Black members of the class of 2026 have taken an AP class during their junior or senior year, compared to 21% of the Black members of the class of 2025. And 42% of Hispanic members of the class of 2026 have taken an AP class during their junior or senior year, as have 56% of both the white and Asian members of the class of 2020.
Oh, they had to bring in the Asians. That's going to bring up the numbers still. Yeah.
What has concerned the administration, school board, and equity advocates is that some students are struggling in their freshman year in honors for all curriculum. Although approximately 80% of all freshmen in the honors for all curriculum receive A's or B's, and the pass rate is approximately 98%, the pass rate for Black students is between 93 and 94%. In the second semester of the 24-25 school year, 2.7% of Black freshmen at OPRF received an F, compared to just 0.3% of white students. And 58.2% of white freshmen at OPRF last year earned an A in the second semester, compared to 63.4% of Asian students, 35.6% of Hispanic students, and 26.1% of Black students. According to the 2025 Illinois School Report Card, the achievement gap between white and Black students at OPRF remains vast. The gap between white, why do they capitalize Black?
Yeah, white is
And not
lowercase,
white.
Black is, yeah. Well, we know the reason.
The gap between white and Black students in the percentage of students meeting state benchmarks was 43.7 points in English language arts and 57.5 points in math.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. That's pretty big, isn't it?
That's big. That's big. So the enrollment, the gap's closing on the enrollment for the sophomore year, because they're saying, well, I survived AP or honors freshman. Well, I can I can do this for sophomores.
Yeah, right.
What they really should have done is juniors.
Hmm.
They should have done freshman to junior
Okay. Yeah.
because that's the bigger academic year for colleges. And that's
Hmm.
where it's really more make or break time.
Well, and you'd see the effect if their actual high school education was having an impact.
Correct.
Yeah.
The 2025 white lowercase black uppercase achievement was lower in ELA, but greater in math than in 2024 when the white lowercase black uppercase achievement gap was 52 points in ELA
52 points.
and
I mean,
51 points in math.
what is that out of? I don't know, but that seems pretty high. That can't be out of that can't be percentages, I would think.
No.
But yikes.
Williams Lee said continued improvement and increased parental involvement is important. Quote, I want to make sure that we are moving forward with a sense of urgency toward the upcoming school year.
Yes, let's
William
make
Lee said.
a totally innocuous statement and have no means by which to measure whether there's actually any impact in regard to that. Because then you'd have to be accountable.
You know what I think I'm going to start doing?
What's that?
I'm so doing this. There would be no way to trick you, but there would be a way to trick the people that are audio only.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna have an AI scrape the Wednesday Journal and I'm gonna put together the settings and give it the background and context of the
Uh-huh.
Wednesday Journal, and I'm gonna have it just make completely fake articles.
Oh, that's pretty good.
It's all gonna be
Drop a
hyphenated,
fakie once in a while.
hyphenated last names and just blank filler statements. And I'm gonna sneak one in one of these weeks, and you'll know, but
Uh-huh.
maybe
Or
I
or
catch some
just
people
put it in
up.
the format of the Wednesday Journal and see if I notice.
That
Get the
would be
code.
that would be
Get the
tricky to
code.
do.
Yeah,
That'd be
that'd be
tricky to do.
that'd be tricky. So, is that the segment?
That's the segment.
Boom!
Meanwhile in Oak Park.
What would have happened if I'd gone for it and just said, no, I'm gay?
Or should I say, or should we say, see?
A new committee. Just
There you
really,
go. New committee. You need more committees, advisory committees. That's the solution. So,
I don't have anything else.
that's great. Your eyes look a little red. You tired?
So I think that's from screens.
Oh, okay.
I get that sometimes. And then I've got this light right here that's been giving me fits all night.
Oh, okay.
See how dark it gets when I'm
Whoa,
on.
it does. Wow,
So that's how it looks when it's
that looks terrible. Turn the light back on.
yeah. And so
Okay.
my eyes are
Yeah.
I get the glare from that.
All right. Well, Charlie's alkali. You'll be okay in a moment. All right.
Yeah.
Well, good episode. We'll see you next time, folks. Thank you for listening and buy some stuff on the website.
Peace.